I'm X.
And I'm Z.
And this is X and Z.
On today's show, we talk about what our show is about, the different generations, and how they use technology differently. We get into reality TV parents, JFK, and proportional representation in our government, along with a moment of remembrance for the year anniversary of Kobe's death. All right, we have a plan for this podcast now.
Took us long enough.
Well, the first one didn't need a plan because we had no idea what we were getting into, but it's getting slowly more official.
I think so. People seem to like it. So I guess we should tell them why we're doing what we're doing.
Is that the first part of the plan?
Yeah, I think so.
Because we didn't explain it in the first episode?
Yeah.
So I guess we should talk about generations.
Well, I think first maybe make the idea that people can understand that, we're talking about current events, right? But the difference between any other current event show would be maybe that we're two really different generations because I'm X and he's Z. And so we have different perspectives on things. So we're speaking about them to our own.
This is our differentiator. This is what makes us different. This is why you should like us. So that's basically the only thing though. We had our big shtick is that we are generational, and then no other show that I've seen has that. It's like when they brought out the Wii and it had a remote instead of a controller, and everyone was like, cool.
No, I think more than that though is I think that we're mother and son, so I think that's different. How many shows have you heard where there's a 40-year-old mother and a 20-year-old son that are actually, at first they like each other, kind of like you, and second, that they have enough in common to where they can have serious conversations, right?
Well, mothers and sons like each other, but I think there's a big difference between liking one another and having a solid relationship that can be like an adult relationship.
Yeah, that's true. But I think that we had that relationship for a long time, even when you were younger, though, I think.
Yeah, but I was still a kid. Now I'm finally getting to my own adult mindset.
That's true. You definitely have a different perspective than you did when you were younger. You're becoming an old person like me.
Well, I'm becoming a cranky old person.
You're a curmudgeon.
Because I'm always angry about something.
That's why I'm here. I balance you.
You're always angry about something.
I am not always angry about something. That's not fair.
I mean...
only certain times.
Sometimes you get pretty angry.
That's true. I think that's a mother's job to occasionally get pretty angry.
Just so the audience knows, I don't have the notes and I forgot them already. Only she has the notes. So you're going to have to remind me what we planned.
Well, you're the one that says that I'm blind. You can see from far away.
Well, yeah, I can see them now that you're pointing them at me.
So I guess we pretty much need to explain.
We need to explain the generations. Okay, the silent generation, most of them are dead.
That's not true.
What do you mean most of them are dead?
I mean, I guess...
what are the years?
So it's 1925 to 1945.
Okay, maybe some of the 30s and the 40s
Well, here's the funny thing. I always knew
Does that make Dolly Parton a silent generation? Dolly Parton was born a really long time ago.
No, I don't think so because I think she just turned 74, and Nana is older than that, and she was born in 1943. She's a silent generation. I didn't realize that. I thought all these years that your grandmother was...
Wait, doesn't that make Dolly Parton also a silent generation?
No, I think she's actually a boomer.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure she was born after 46.
Well, the silent generation and the boomers have... Wait, the silent generation, if it starts in
1925. So yes, back to your point.
So they grew up during a depression. Mm-hmm. That's fun.
But that's not why they're the silent generation. You know why they're the silent generation, right?
Yeah, because they were in their parents were in World War I, right?
But they were considered the children that should be seen and not heard. Have you heard that before? Mm-hmm. So that's why they're the silent generation. That was the time when parents wanted children not making... You had no opinion.
I feel like boomers also wanted that to a degree.
Yeah, but I think it was more in their generation. I think that's why the boomers continued it, because they were from the people that wanted the silent children.
Okay, boomer.
Okay, boomer.
You know that joke is for everyone who is older than 30.
Yeah, because you say it to me and I'm clearly not
okay, boomer.
That's horrible.
Okay.
So baby boomers. Baby boomers 1946 to 1964. And the reason that they were called baby boomers, do you know?
Yeah, because of the baby boom.
post-war baby boom.
Yeah.
So when all the soldiers
it was
came
like
home,
the baby boom. They all
they
had
all had
babies.
a bunch of babies.
They all got married
So
or
they
had
were
sex or whatever
the
they
baby
did.
boomers. Well, they had to clearly have sex to have babies. So
Well, I don't know how much of the babies were out of wedlock. Like I don't have the
I would
numbers
imagine
on
less of back then.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But I don't know that for sure. So Gen X, that's me, 1965 to 1980.
Which is like a really broad, I think. Like I feel like there's a lot of difference between the 60s kids and the 80s
That actually
kids.
has all of my brothers together with me.
Even the eldest?
Yeah, he's
Oh, okay.
66.
So you're all, well, that makes sense. You guys are all weird and you're like little grungy, not grungy. I don't know what it is.
Punk.
No, it's not even punk. Like the middle brother has his weird curmudgeon-y, like, I don't know. I feel I can only describe like his taste in stuff as like a 90s boomer shooter.
No, I think that's very common for the, like, so I graduated in 1994, right? He graduated in 1989. And I know a lot of those guys in that era tend to be very similar to him when I meet them now. And then my other brother who was young, he was in 1984, and he is even a different type. So we're all Gen X, but we're very, very different.
But do you know who's a really good way to show off what like the essence of Gen X, especially the older Gen Xers, is just watch Cobra Kai. Johnny is the main character of Cobra Kai, and he is like the Gen X poster boy.
But he is, I think that encompasses very much more my brothers than me.
He even has the boomer dad who he like hates a little bit. Like that's so Gen X.
Yeah, but no, I mean, like, I think it encompasses because when he listens back, you know, the kind of music that he listens to, the stuff, like, even the stuff that Danielson sees. He has a different perspective, right? Because he wasn't the rocker kid.
He wasn't the rocker
but
kid.
they're definitely like that.
He
early
was the nerdy
80s,
kid Gen Xer.
Where I was more, I'm early 90s. So even though we're the same generation, we definitely have a different perspective on things.
You're at the end of your generation. I'm at the like very beginning of mine.
Well, kind of. One thing about that, which I didn't realize, is that millennials go 1981 to 1996, but there was a caveat that it could be all the way up to 2000. I don't know why they get an extra several years.
You know that like there's no authority on when the generations are.
No, but I looked at a couple different sites and they all kind of said that.
Some people say that millennial goes all the way to 99, and some people are like hard at 95, and some people like extend it to like 02.
Well, I always understood, like I said earlier, is that your grandmother was born in 1943, and I seriously thought she was a boomer all these years. She isn't.
So they're both silent generations.
They're both silent.
So we don't have. That means we don't have a single boomer.
Well, you do. My dad's first daughter. From his other marriage. So yes, my half sister is a boomer.
Okay, we got some boomers.
So we have a boomer, and your aunt is also a boomer.
Huh.
So.
Okay, boomer.
So they're there. You can still call them at Thanksgiving or something.
Silent generation, really old. Boomers are like the chunk of the old people, and boomers were raised in a more prosperous time.
Yeah, because
than the silent generations.
50s.
So they're the older people who are more willing to like spend. The silent generation, like they're not a huge fan.
I don't even think the boomers are really willing to spend until
they're willing to enjoy their life more.
I think when
than a silent generation.
When you know the ones that were not necessarily my age parents, they were still a silent generation, but the ones that became the yuppies.
Yeah, they're boomers.
Those guys are boomers.
And they're like rich and like living large.
Yeah, they were willing. They went through the 50s, which was also prosperous for a different reason. But then they also went through the 80s.
The 50s was prosperous economically.
But high taxes. The 80s was the polar opposite.
Yeah, but no, the 50s was just prosperous because like unlike now, you can like have one person have a job and have a house and 2 cars.
But the top tier was also taxed a lot higher than they are today.
Well, yeah,
up to like 50%.
They were also prosperous because the top tier is always prosperous.
But then the lower tiers are a little bit more prosperous when the top tiers pay their fair share.
Yes.
So that's kind of.
But I'm saying. The top tiers are never not going to be prosperous. Like it's
no.
I can't think of a single society in which the upper echelon was not very prosperous.
No, but in that generation, even the middle class.
My parents the middle class
could buy a house. My mom didn't work.
Well, after World War II, the middle class really prospered.
Yeah, for at least until 70s probably when. Gas prices started really rising.
The gas crisis hurt, but I don't think it hurt the middle class maybe as much as people like
I think
to
when
think.
the 80s came on and the taxes were cut so much, that was an issue.
Yeah, I don't think that trickle down helped anyone except obviously the upper
The people
upper
on the
class.
top.
Um,
So then we go to Generation Z. So that's you. So it's considered anybody after 1996.
have you heard what people say about Generation Z?
What?
So like they're starting to become like preliminary, like, oh, this is what Gen Z does. But like if you ever hear like someone describe Generation Z, it's always like, well, this generation hasn't been around long enough for anyone to really know what they're going to be about. It's like, well, I guess you're right.
You should technically be almost done with your generation. There should be another one starting because it was
It's called Generation. I just learned. It's called Generation Alpha. I think it's called because we're done with the Roman alphabet, so now we're moving into the Greek alphabet.
So those guys are the ones that were born probably in the last
It's
5 years?
It's after.
No, 1996. It'd have to go into 2011.
It's after, yeah, but it's after.
2012.
They're currently like 9, I think.
So like 2012.
Yeah,
That makes sense. That's about right.
But
For 1996 to
Gen Z is
2012.
still really young. Like I think I'm like the 3rd or 4th year of Gen Zers. No, well, depending on who you ask, I'm either in the like maybe the. Well, I'm a 2nd year in college, so everyone below me is a Gen Zer, and maybe people who are juniors right now could be Gen Zers, and then basically everyone else is a millennial still. Unless you agree with the 95 people.
Well, even that. I mean, you're talking just a couple more years.
But then there's Gen Zers in the
people
workforce.
just graduating college, that's millennial, probably.
Well, not if you subscribe to the 95 people.
I think it even with that.
No, then there would be people who have already had their degree for like a few, like 2 years.
Yeah, I guess so.
Maybe a couple more, but there's a lot in common between like the 01 people and the 95 people because we all watch like the 90s shows on Nickelodeon, but like that's kind of the only overlap. Like we grew up a lot more with technology than like the millennials were already pretty old by the time
think about it. The first
iPhones came out
in
they were like 20,
2009?
right? Well, yeah, 20.
20
If you were born in like 91, say, then by the time iPhones came around, you were almost 20. So you didn't really grow up with.
You didn't grow up with it. No, you could have maybe even not had a computer in your house.
Yeah. So it's
but
a little bit
now
different.
We have 7 computers in this house. I mean, it's no longer people. Even your grandmother has some form of a computer in her house.
I have 3 computers on my desk right now.
That didn't happen. I have 2 in my office. Your dad has 2 that he works on. Your brother has 1.
And he has 1 in he has if you count the Xbox, he has 2 in the entertainment center.
That's right.
So there's a lot.
There's a lot of technology. But I mean, even the silent generation now have some form of technology in their home.
Yeah, but I feel like they're a lot more inclined to use like smart lights and stuff. Apparently they really love those.
I think that's functional
smart
because they
automated
understand how to
homes.
use their phones. They're pretty good
Some
at
of them.
that. Yeah, but they're pretty good at it. You have to give it to them. They're actually pretty good at phones and iPads, right? The most simple, basic things. And those things can all do smart devices, so they like that. So that's a good thing.
I love Internet of Things.
I think with devices, though, you have to say is that's a generational thing. So the other day, I turned on the timer.
Oh, yes, the timer. And Nana does the timer a different way. So Nana does the wind up, and she goes... and that's her timer. And she has a Google Home 2 feet from her, but she has the timer. And that's how she does it no matter what. And she has like 7 of them for some reason. And then
In case you can't find one.
you have the
I use the
you
microwave.
have the smart thing 5 feet from you as well, but you use the microwave.
That's right.
And I have the smart thing from me 5 feet away, and I actually use it.
Yeah. No, see, that's the thing. Like, and you'll tell me, oh, why don't you use that? And I'm like, it's easier just to reach my finger up, push the button, and turn the knob.
Well, it's not, because having a smart assistant is essentially having a servant who you bark orders at.
Well, your Nana does like to bark orders
So-
at hers, but she doesn't use it for a timer.
So rich people have always had Google Homes, so we're just not used to it
So now they have their own assistant.
Yeah, and
but they had live assistants.
Did you know I
That's the
once read
difference.
an article that said that because you can be rude to smart homes, that it's teaching children to be rude?
I could see that a little bit. I think everything's teaching children to be rude.
But
People
that's dumb.
are more
That's
rude.
dumb because I'm rude as heck to my smart assistants because they're robots. But I'm not rude to like people in my life.
Maybe little kids if they grew up hearing that.
Yeah, I guess if they
Right.
had parents that didn't like teach them how to have a social interaction.
I think that might, listen, I think that there are a certain number of parents and millennial parents who let their kids just sit in front of
That's true.
smart devices,
That's
and
true.
that's raising their
I've always
children.
seen the thing where both parents work, so the kids are raised on iPads.
Well, I think that's true, but also that generation, because they're so comfortable with technological devices, they see the benefit in them, but maybe sometimes they don't see the negative part of them.
Well,
Where Gen X, so my generation, we're less inclined to do that.
You gave me pretty free
Him
reign.
too. I think there was, but definitely we still had family time. We still eat together every night.
Yeah. I don't know if you taught that to me or if I just I don't like to sit around. I can't sit in front of my computer for like that long.
Yeah, I think that. Well,
I have to like get up and like do something.
Yeah, I think that that's something that I don't think it taught it. That's just how you've been more comfortable doing.
Some of my boys, well, in college it's less common, but it still exists. But some of my friends, not my friends, but some people that I like know will sit and play games for like 12 hours. Like I can't do that anymore. I could when I was younger, but I can't anymore.
Sit there for hours. Your dad had a friend that he was actually the best man at our wedding, and he actually was like a gamer, and he wanted to be a professional gamer, I think. And when he was not working, he was home at his house on his whatever Xbox or whatever it was, and literally, I think it was PC gaming, and he literally played it day and night. He'd be up till like 4:00 in the morning, get 2 hours of sleep, and go to work. And
that's
that
the
was
only
like
way
his
you
life.
can be competitive.
That's nuts. I always thought it was nuts.
Professional gaming.
His girlfriend, who ended up being his wife, was totally cool with it, and I thought they never left. They didn't do anything. He ate cereal only and played his games.
Well, you know that there's a little bit of a stigma on games still, right?
I think so.
Like no one questions it if you swim for 12 hours a day to train for the Olympics. But like there's an equivalent of that for gamers, and it's nothing I'd aspire towards, but like those gaming tournaments that they do are intense.
Well, I think you can consider it somewhat of a sport.
Well, it's not like good for you in the way it's pretty good for your brain actually.
Probably good for your hands.
But it's not good for your body, the amount that they have to
In the
sit.
sitting, yeah.
But now standing desks are a thing, so
and I think some of you can stand up. Not that it's good for you to do that, but you can stand up and still play.
Standing desks are great. Did you know standing desks have like a multitude of health benefits for someone who has like a desk job?
Oh, I'm sure. Standing up more often in the day.
Sitting is like terrible for you.
It shortens the muscles in your thighs after long periods of time, and yeah, it's not good.
I strap a computer to my eyeballs and play it. That's how I do it.
I don't think anyone's gonna understand what you just said.
I have a VR. It's so good.
You didn't want a VR, remember?
I didn't. I thought that was stupid and a gimmick, and then I got one, and I got addicted to a game on it, and now I think VR is the future.
That's right. See, you never know. You shouldn't always say something is not good until you try it.
Yeah. Did we get off track?
No, I think we're good. So speaking of that, so you didn't like the VR, and then you did like the VR. Something that is generationally different is social media. So what are you, Snapchat?
Well, like I am a little bit different from some of my other friends because most of my friends, especially the girls, they post on Snapchat they post on Instagram and they post that way. And then they post their butts or whatever. And then they get all their girlfriends in the comments saying how beautiful they are. And then they feel validated. And then that's kind of how it goes. But a lot of us use Snapchat too. And Snapchat was incepted for dirty things, and it is still very much used for dirty things.
But I think
the pictures disappear.
Well, I can understand that.
That's the point of Snapchat.
I get that, but I still think that, especially I see a lot of the girls, they need to be a little bit more careful with the stuff that they post on social media.
Now a lot of us use Snapchat in lieu of text.
Oh, I get that.
I use Snapchat in lieu of text just because I don't like Instagram text very much, and no one my age likes Facebook.
Yeah.
And it's all.
I think that also different social media platforms, like I think we touched on this last time, was Facebook is more for my generation, right? You guys don't really like it.
Yeah, we don't really use it that much.
And then Instagram, I think you guys are much more fond of.
That would probably be like if you actually like. I don't have any numbers to do this, but I'd be willing to bet that if you actually aggregated all of Gen Z and like asked them and looked at their analytics, the most time would be spent on Instagram, because you can just scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll like endlessly on Instagram.
I did that today for the first time on TikTok, and that was actually the first time I looked. I was looking for something else, and I went scrolling down. It was actually, I don't know. It just almost it seemed more mind numbing than when you scroll on Facebook. And I know they're all videos, so that's one of the reasons I don't like that, because I don't always want to hear something. I'll turn the sound off on videos.
Did you know?
I'd rather read it.
Did you? Oh, you don't know about how we do our phones. So this is something that is not super well known, but Gen Zers have their volume off all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
And if we send someone a Snapchat that needs the sound, there are like markers on Snapchat that you can put on it that say turn your sound on.
On the Snapchat that you send?
Yes. So basically it's assumed that your sound's going to be off.
I have my sound off most of the time.
Well, yeah, but like we're in school and stuff, so we don't want to get like caught.
The only time I turn my sound on is when I go to sleep. I will say though, I think it's important for parents out there, and I think you appreciate it now. You may not have a long time ago, but the fact that I worked really hard to keep you pretty invisible online. Same with your brother. So some of the rules were always no personal information, no saying what school you went to, what city you live in. I mean, down to even what color your house is. Like zero information, no pictures.
Well, like, yeah, it's good to be invisible online, I think, because I like that I can keep my work persona and my personal persona separate.
And think about it. If I know a lot of kids your age that were, especially daughters of my friends that went to school with you, and too many of them are all over the internet with their real names, with their everything. So when you guys go to look for jobs and they look you up, you aren't going to exist except on LinkedIn. There's a certain
degree of like there's a girl I know who has a couple pictures up and she looks pretty in them. And if you look up her name, you get her Instagram, and that's it. Like, that's not going to affect your job.
No, that's fine. But some of them have.
But she has her full name and where she's from, and that's not going to hurt her. But if you have your full name and where you're from, and you're like posting political things or anything that could be construed against you, that could
unsavory pictures. I've seen a lot of those.
Yeah, and
too many from young girls.
That colleges look up your name.
I know, I'm sure, and I know employers look up your name. I can tell you that for sure.
If you had like this great resume and you were going to get in, and then they saw like something dumb you posted that when you were a kid, kids should be able to do dumb things, right, without consequences, because that's how kids do.
That's right.
Well, consequences obviously, but not consequences into like their 20s and 30s.
Well, not consequences that completely change the trajectory of their lives. Yeah, that's not good.
So that's kind of it depends on who you want to fault. Like, do you want to fault the parents for not controlling them, or do you want to fault the kids for doing it, or do you want to fault like Mark Zuckerberg for making a platform that makes that possible?
Well, I don't know what to think. I'm just glad when I look back that I made the decision. And I've told parents that before, because people ask online, well, what do you do to protect your children online? A lot of parents are very, they're so protective that they don't let their children do things.
Like the people who don't let their kids have social media. So then they make a fake social media.
They're always going to make a fake social media.
And then they do things on it anyway. And then it's like a lot more dangerous.
And then it's sneaky. It's the same like we have an older drinking age in the United States, and because of it, kids like to they want to drink at 16 because it's cool.
14.
But if anything that's taboo, prohibition happen, people drink more because people are going to be people. So you just have to think about it. But speaking of that, so if parents have something to do with how their children are raised, going back into reality TV. So the Plathville.
The Plathville, yes.
So what do you think about those parents? Because they're definitely far more strict than I am, but their kids are living out of their house at 17. So how does that work?
They're like hypocrites, right? Because she was out doing all sorts of crazy stuff when she was a kid, right?
Well, you know what? And
the mom, right?
Yeah.
And she turned out fine, quote unquote. So
yeah. And the dad too. He said the same thing.
So they're both hypocrites. So being a hypocrite to your kids is never going to turn out well, folks, just so you know.
Well, and I also think that if you look at the parallels between that family and the Duggars, right? Way more kids in the Duggar family, but they have a lot of skeletons in the closet.
Yeah, but the kids do whatever they want because they can't be handled.
Well, because there's a lot of them. But I mean, think about how strict it was. So which do you think was more strict, the Duggars or the Plaths?
I think the Plaths were, because the Duggars couldn't keep a handle on all of them.
Yeah, there was a lot of
They're literally just out of logistics.
But I think that they were so oppressive with them, like making the girls wear skirts only, making the girls
then they
wear
end
their
up
hair
doing
long.
crazy stuff when they're older.
I don't know if they've done as much crazy stuff as the Plath children
Well,
have.
they had a little bit more freedom just by virtue of the numbers. I'm telling you.
But I don't think they ever left their farm.
I've seen those.
Or
Yeah,
whatever
but they're
it was.
all over the place and they're doing whatever they want.
Well,
like
now, I mean,
the
most of them
Plath
are
kids
adults.
literally like do like the sport the mom wants, play the games the mom wants, like wear exactly the clothes the mom
Wait,
wants.
Duggars or Plaths?
The Plaths are way more locked down and there's only like 5 of them, so it's way easier.
Yeah, but look at Mariah. She's this 17-year-old girl.
Yeah, but
she doesn't wear what the mom wants. There is
but
no
she left.
Duggar girl that wore the stuff that she wore. Like, there's no, that she wears. There's no.
I know, but the mom was stricter. The Plath mom was stricter, so the girl.
So more of them have rebelled.
Yeah, if strict parents are always going to breed rebellious kids, and I know that because all the kids I always meet like girls and other kids with strict parents, and they're always the most like, whoa, did you just say that? Did you just do that? And the kids with like relatively chill parents, like they'll like smoke pot or whatever. So I guess if you really don't want your kids doing that,
I don't know. I think that the kids with the really strict parents are more likely to have the pot smoking kid.
No, yeah, but like usually the kids with lax parents, the parents don't care about pot, so they'll be fine with pot. But those kids are also usually more level-headed. Like they do like usually the right thing, and they have kind of the right.
I think they're less likely to fall into the trap of excess because it's not a taboo.
Anything like taboo you kind of want to do. Like I don't know how people haven't gotten that yet.
I think that kids in general have a desire to kind of do the thing that is taboo. But if you make less taboos, then they're not going to look for them as much, right? And then I also think it's really important to always be honest with your kids. I mean, I was honest with you guys your whole lives, very, very young. If you had any questions, I always answered them as honestly as I could for your age, right? Because I wasn't going to be too, explicit about certain things at different ages, but I still wanted to if you had questions, I still wanted to answer your questions. Okay, I think that is healthy for the children.
Yeah, that's fine.
But your Nana didn't always understand that because it wasn't so much like that in my house.
And she was, and she's a silent generation.
That's true.
Silent generations don't like to talk about things.
That's more your papa because he also doesn't think so much that kids should have a voice. So that makes it a little different too.
None of them do. I've talked to plenty of silent generations in my day, and they tend to not be a fan of the youngins talking. Well,
I think that as for having rules and restrictions, something changed this week in California.
Yeah.
So what happened?
Screw some, let us out.
You can't say screw some.
Why can't I say screw some?
Well, Governor Newsom decided to remove the restrictions, but you're still in the tiers. So Southern California is still purple tier. There's not a whole lot that changes, but you can now eat out again. So that makes you happy.
Well, I mean,
I get my toes done again. That makes me happy. But it's good. I see a lot more people happy. I see things unwinding. The vaccines are on their way. Great. People are getting them, and
that's a win.
And that's good. Older people are getting them as fast as they can. I think California's royally screwed it up. I think we're last on vaccine administration in the whole country, so that's great.
I don't know.
I mean, I know we're a big state, but I think that they had 10 months to kind of figure out those apps, and they kind of just started working on them. It looks like 2 weeks ago. It doesn't make any sense. So people are not getting their appointments and all that fun stuff.
Well,
hopefully that's going to start changing things. But yeah, I think there are people that are saying, people say I'm the best president in the entire history of the United States. That's just what people say. That's what people have been saying about me. Stop. People have been saying that they think he's doing it because he's going to get recalled. What do you think?
They're not going to recall Governor Newsom. They're all liberal commies out there.
Stop it.
Well, he's like 300,000 signatures away from getting recalled. And like,
I'm shocked at it.
well, my teacher said something good the other day, and she was like, well, if he gets recalled, it'll probably be a Dem. And there's like a lot of Dems right now who would be real happy to steal his seat. So it would actually be a pretty heated campaign, I think. I don't think any Republicans would have a chance in California, but
I know there's a few Republicans that'll come back and try. I think Cox, the guy that went against him last time,
yeah,
he'll be back in the mix for sure.
Yeah, but I think there will be Dems. I think there's a lot of Dems that are like, all right, I could do better than this.
But I think he didn't just, I don't think he just screwed up on coronavirus stuff. I mean, our homeless problem is worse. I mean, people are tired of that kind of stuff.
Well, I've seen the video where it's pretty, there's a guy who's like, ha! That guy, I don't remember his name. I wish I remembered his name. But Governor Newsom when he closed back down the stay-at-home order, when he did the new stay-at-home order, there was this woman who had outfitted her entire restaurant with like outdoor seating facilities, like put a huge investment into her restaurant for this. And then he closed her down, but the film crew next door got to eat their lunches outside.
Yeah, and huge, like open air tents, just like hers. Yeah. No, that video went viral, and I think that was I think that him going to the French Laundry didn't help him.
Laundry.
But I also think that people just realized that it wasn't going to change a whole lot. So, great. I think it's, they can say, it changed things and it made it better, and now the numbers are down. Fine, whatever they need to say. Let's just try and get back to some semblance of normalcy.
Well, it's approaching a year very quickly, and I will, when I am old, tell my kids, yes, we wasted over a year of our lives, and it was completely preventable. There were so many things we could have done, we did not do. Instead, we did the most blatant strategy, the most like, you know what, close everything, that'll do it. And it didn't do it, and then we did it again, and then it didn't do it, and then we did it again, and it didn't do it, and then we continue to do it.
Yeah, it doesn't really change a whole lot.
And then all my generation is like, I'm in support of it. And I'm like, you guys.
Well, hopefully it's unraveling and things can get better. Hopefully, we'll have, the deaths are going down. The death rate is going down. They have better treatments. That's a good thing.
You could say we're Joe sliding back into normalcy.
Joe sliding. Uncle Joe's bringing us back.
I don't know if Uncle Joe's bringing us back, but Uncle Joe's at the helm, and I feel a little bit more secure.
I feel more secure, but not necessarily because of coronavirus, just because.
No, I mean because of his other things, because he's actually someone who is capable of governance.
Yep.
There's something to be said of when every single world leader is like, sayonara.
Well, I think that's a big problem. Yeah, our standing on the world stage is definitely.
And then they were like, we all look forward to meeting with President Biden. And I was like, I wonder why.
He actually did call Putin today.
Who, Biden?
Yeah, there was a readout.
Well, he's still a world leader. It's okay to call him.
I know, but I think he waited. I think he waited for a week because he's not the first leader you call.
Yeah, he's definitely not the first leader you call.
But he did press him on a lot of things. He pressed him on stuff that he's doing in the Middle East. I
haven't kept up with what Joe Biden's been doing.
I haven't really either. I feel like
he did a lot of good stuff I saw, and he did.
There's actually something he wants to end
for-profit
prisons.
Well, I saw that he passed the executive order to pass it out, but I really think he should pressure Congress into passing an actual bill, because executive orders come as easy as they go.
Yeah, because they can all be repealed.
And also, it's not very democratic to do executive orders. Especially the executive orders should be kept to a minimum, just by virtue of it's not something that the people have.
I actually think, here's what I think on it. Somebody said that today. They said, Biden has done more executive orders in his first week than...
No, they all do a lot of executive orders.
In his first week than other guys have done in, I don't know, their first 100 days or whatever. But the difference between them is that a lot of his are
undoing.
It's not just the undoing that he's doing, but he's also doing things that are symbolic executive orders that actually are kind of like becoming like a working framework of what we want to aspire to. So not things that actually really move huge needles, but it shows the world that, hey, there are some progressive ideals that we want to start showing that we can do. And I think that's a good way to use the executive order, because they aren't things that they're symbolic more than they're legislative, and they just kind of change the trajectory of how we're viewed. And I think that's a good thing. So when people say, oh, well, he's doing a lot more executive orders than others, his are a lot more symbolic. They're not actually changing things. Like one of Trump's was the transgender ban in the military. That was more than symbolism. It affected a lot of people in different ways. But I think that the symbolism in a lot of the ones that Joe Biden has done are good.
Well, banning transgender people from the military. Oh, I yawned while I said that. Banning transgender people from the military is very blatant, just intolerance. Like,
oh, yeah,
there's not any benefit to doing that. There's not even any way to say there's a benefit to that. Like,
well,
oh
and it definitely hurts more than it helps. And I don't think there are that many transgender people in the military. I don't know. Am I wrong? But I just don't.
Don't ask, don't tell was also.
But that was for being homosexual, like you.
I know, but that was also blatant intolerance. Like,
oh yeah, and it wasn't. It wasn't
good.
There's
no reason gay men can't serve if they want to serve.
It wasn't good because
or gay women,
when Clinton did it, it was.
I think it was an appease piece.
It was an appeasement. That's right.
But
it wasn't written the right way.
We learned with Hitler what we should do with appeasement. Not
do appeasement. That being said, I think he's doing okay. And you know what? To tell you the truth, I like the slower news days.
Everybody likes the slower news days, except the advertisers.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think this is really going to make the media be upset because the last 4 years they've made.
Have you noticed now they're reporting on stuff? It's like, why are you reporting on this? It's like, is every day a slow news day, buddy?
Well, the questions that they asked, I think the first day that they had they asked what if Biden was in the press conference, if Biden was going to keep the colors of the plane, the new Air Force One
that's such a waste of our money and time. Who cares?
Like, what? Who cares? And she didn't know how to answer because she was like, I don't know. But that's the question. What are the
media is not used to the president actually presidenting, because had you asked Donald Trump what he was going to do to Air Force One, he would have known. Well, I'm going to paint it gold.
No, I think it was red, white, and blue.
But just
which I'll tell you, I wasn't very happy about when I heard that because I do like the
Kennedy
light
colors,
blue,
right?
but that was Kennedy's plane. That's why they kept doing it.
Yeah, we got a Kennedy. Kennedy's like American royalty.
He kind of squished on Kennedy because she killed the Rose Garden, and he changed the plane. I don't know. Maybe he didn't like the Kennedys.
It used to be you couldn't squish the Kennedys. That was like the rule of American politics. You had to love the Kennedys.
That's
what
right.
happened?
I guess maybe he just doesn't like Kennedys. Maybe his dad had something against the Kennedy family.
They're both mob bosses.
So speaking of that, if we want to change the mob rule that we have in the United States, I know that
we don't have mob rule.
10 months ago.
10 months ago?
I was against something that you liked a lot.
You were vehemently against it.
Yes, I did.
You were like, that's stupid. There's two sides to the political spectrum.
We should say what it is.
Yeah, but you said, like, that was what you said. There's two sides to the political spectrum. There's Republicans and Democrats.
I couldn't see it.
She couldn't envision it in her mind.
I couldn't envision in my mind that there wouldn't just be a two-party system. So you kind of tried to explain to me proportional representation, and my visceral reaction was to be against it.
You were not happy about it.
So why don't you explain to everybody what proportional representation is?
It's very simple. I'll give a body. Let's say California. Mm-hmm. California is electing their state Congress, for instance. Let's say that 25% of Californians are Republicans, 30% of Californians, obviously, assuming voting isn't compulsory, 30% of Californians are Democrats, 20% are Greens, 10% are I don't know, libertarians, and there's a couple other parties, blah blah blah, and it all adds up to 100%. You would take those percentages and allot them to each party rather than a person, and those parties would then fill up the seats so the Congress would be 30% Democrat, 25% Republican, and blah, 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 blah. And then you would have a system that represented everyone's beliefs. You would have a system that
it forces them to work together.
Yeah, they have to work together because no one has a majority. So let's say the Dems want to do something and there's 30% Dems. The Dems have to go in court either the conservatives or the liberals. So the Dems go to the Green Party and they say, we want to do this. And the Green Party says either yes or no. The Green Party says yes, but we have to add this that's more progressive. And so they do even more progressive reform. Or let's say that the Dems are like, that's too progressive. Then they have to go to the libertarians or conservatives or whoever else and say, well, we want this. And they're like, okay, fine, we'll do this, but we have to do this to make it more conservative. And the Dems say, do we want it more progressive? It would be a whole negotiation amongst everyone. It wouldn't just be this, well, we have 51 and you have 49.
Yeah, there's always a problem because of that.
We have 51 and you have 49.
But I think I was more hardline Dem 10 months ago.
Yeah, well, you've moved away a little bit from the Dems
but I still
while
wasn't-
simultaneously pushing away the Republicans, which has effectively made you a slightly Democratic independent.
I guess so. Yeah. No, I think I'm more than slightly. I still have the ideology of a Democrat.
Well,
that will never change.
Most of the tenets of the Democratic
I'm not more
Party.
conservative. I have progressive ideals, all of that stuff, but I'm not so hardline. I don't just down ballot vote anymore. I will never again Dem down ballot vote just because they're Dem. And we pushed that in our party for the last several years because that's just how we tried to pack things. But I think that sometimes there needs checks and balances that the last 10 months has shown me that maybe there's some Dems that I just don't want.
Well, here's the problem. From my point of view, the Republicans, just as a party, there are very few Republicans I can think of that have any sort of integrity in my mind. So the Republicans are essentially a null option for me because it's just pure evil in my mind.
Well, but I think that you're missing out on parts of the people like the Lincoln Project.
No, but they're good, whatever, but they're not the voice of the party right now.
Oh, you
they're
mean
very
as
much
a
the
party,
fringe. As a party.
Well, now they're the Trump
If you
party.
look at the Republican, not the Republicans as in, oh, I'm conservative and I believe that we shouldn't have the government pay people. We should do it in our local communities and the churches and stuff. Okay, fine. That's a good thing to believe. Fine, you're a Republican. That's your ideology. I accept you.
Conservative ideals.
That's an American conservative ideal. Okay, fine. But if you are the Republicans we see in Congress and the Senate, almost all of them, like you look at Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham and Moscow Mitch, and they're all just evil. Like evil. And then you see the Democrats on the flip side, and they're pretty bad too, but they vote for things that are relatively okay sometimes.
Yeah, I think that their ideology and belief system, that's where it's good with me. But I definitely have a different view of people like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. And you know what a lot of it is that I believe, they need to retire. Today, Patrick Leahy, who is now the pro tempore of the Senate, because now we have a majority, he's 80 years old. And the day that he signed and was put in as pro tempore, he had to stand up, go up to the lectern and sign a book. And he his gait was off and it looked like he almost was going to fall off the step. Today they had to take him to the hospital because he was in his office after they did the roll call and wasn't feeling good. So he's actually, I don't even know if he's okay. So he ended up in the hospital. He's 80 years old. He should have retired 15 years ago.
It's 25.
So I think that's where we're missing the whole thing, that we have a lot of really older people who don't represent the majority of our people.
Well, what I was saying is more that you're left with the choice between evil and slightly less evil, like kind of better than the evil guy.
The lesser of two evils?
Yeah, but like not even necessarily the lesser. It's just like you're left with evil and the alternative. So that's not really a choice. Your choice is...
Well, but I think now that I understand that, I think you're right. With the proportional representation...
You now have a choice. You say...
Not just choices, but they would have to do their jobs, and they would have to actually negotiate with other people.
Well, if there could be like a progressive party, right?
Here's the example. I think that the Trump Republicans and the Tea Party Republicans kind of co-opted the Republicans over the last decade, right? Well, we've had the same thing on our side, but it's been the ultra progressive.
Yeah,
left.
the progressives and
those people they have so many demands.
They could all have their own party.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They are so far different than us that they have their ideals are so far right and so far left that they differ from the majority of the people. And so they could have their own party. I get that. But the difference is, the problem that I see
then they could get little gains.
Here's the problem that I see with that, is that nobody puts in the work between the elections.
Okay, I disagree with you on that fundamentally.
But
you always say nobody puts work in between the elections. Like, only on an election year do the third parties start doing anything. Yeah. I never see them do anything in the other years.
They're not trying to make another party.
Yes, I
Bernie
know
is
what
an
you're saying.
independent
I
and runs
understand.
as a Democrat, which he should never run as a
I
Democrat.
understand what you're saying, and I get it. Like, oh, I only see them on election years. They should be working more. Okay, fine. The American political party system fundamentally discourages anything other than two parties.
That's what I'm saying.
It did not used to be the Democrats and the Republicans. It used to be the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists.
That's fine.
And over the years, it has switched up again and again and again, and it has still always been two parties since 1787.
I don't disagree with you on that, but what I'm saying is that if they were ever to get to a point where we could have proportional representation, right? To get to that point, they have to put in the work and make the party.
It would take major reform.
Well, the biggest reform that could make that happen would be campaign finance reform, because then it wouldn't take as much money as it does right now to become from a House member to the president takes millions and millions of dollars. But if there was campaign finance reform, then those little parties could actually form. And then it would be more negotiation. But clearly, the two big parties don't want that to happen. Now I get it.
While I do agree that campaign finance reform should be a thing, I just think the only way in my mind that we could see proportional representation. Thankfully, the Constitution doesn't say anything about parties, so we could actually keep our Constitution intact. But the norms that have been established over the years since the establishment of our country would have to be completely overturned.
Well, I think
it would take some kind of political revolution.
I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand too, is that I think people seem to think that what we know is modern day
it's always been this way.
It's always been this way.
It hasn't.
Yeah, it's always, yeah.
George Washington was like, hey, parties, don't do them.
Yeah.
And guess what? Literally, who was after? It was John Adams was third, wasn't he?
Yeah.
No, it was Jefferson was the second president.
I don't know.
Who was the second president? I'm
You're
losing
better
it.
at that.
I think it was John Adams. No, not John. I think it was Thomas Jefferson, second president. I always get it confused.
Who is it?
John Adams.
Okay, so you're
right. So he was a Federalist, and Jefferson was an Anti-Federalist. Just so you know, Adams literally G-Dub died. Parties, George Washington, no party.
Yeah.
Dies. Parties start.
But they weren't Republican and Democrats.
No, they were Federalist and Anti-Federalist, and you can kind of think of the beliefs were more spread around back then. Like the Federalists, like the Democrats, believe in a stronger federal government, and the Anti-Federalists, like the Republicans, believe in a stronger local governments. But the Federalists were like the businessmen, more like the Republicans, and the Anti-Federalists were like the farmers and the poorer people, like the Democrats. So it was a little bit different back then, just overall.
Well, I think it was even different up into this last century, in the middle of the last century, when the Dixiecrats broke off from the Democratic Party, who was more conservative at the time, and became Republicans, and then they became a more conservative party. But my parents, who are now Republican, were Democrats during Kennedy. They voted for Kennedy.
Everyone was a Democrat during Kennedy.
Well, I'm just saying.
Are you kidding me? If you weren't rich, you were a Democrat.
Even to the middle of last century, it was different.
Republicans were Democrats.
We assume, because this is what we see and it's in our face, that it was always this way. Look, we had a Whig party. Where did that go?
We had
what
a Whig
happened to
party.
The Whigs?
We were Whigs and Tories for a little minute, a hot minute, and
did
then
we call ourselves Tories?
I think we did. And when Jacksonian Democrats came along, that kind of system eroded.
Yeah.
It was very Andrew Jackson is one of the major. He changed American politics in terms of parties fundamentally.
But I mean, just think. So we could change so vastly over the last 275 years.
Well, all it takes is
could happen again. They just have to put the work in.
All it takes. Andrew Jackson was a Trump-like figure.
That's why he liked him.
He was like the strong man, and he did what he wanted, and he didn't follow the rules, and he did duels with people and shot people and got shot, and he was cooler than Trump. Trump was like, I'm gonna say I do all those things and never do them. but not that Andrew Jackson was great. He did the Trail of Tears and all that.
Yeah, not good.
So, but I'm just saying, like, in terms of if you want real political change, you're gonna need, especially since the executive has become so powerful. You can thank Andrew Jackson in part for that.
Well, you can also thank Dick Cheney. He gave a lot of
since since after the Gilded Age, so 1901-ish, the executive has gained infinitely more power. In the Gilded Age, the presidents were basically figureheads, and it was all the Congress.
Yeah.
The Gilded Age is like the late after, like post 1850.
Well, think
just
about
so you
it,
know.
We don't realize this, but a lot of people, they're talking right now about Biden's tax plan and what he's going to do and what he's not going to do. People don't realize that no matter what spreads on Facebook and what Biden wants for a tax plan, the power of the purse is with Congress. So they'll be the ultimate decider on how that happens.
Yes, and I'm sure the Republicans will tone down anything too progressive. They still have a little bit of power.
Well, and it's not a filibuster-proof majority. They don't have...
Yeah, but Moscow Mitch has said he'll give them some leeway.
At times past, when he was still Mitch McConnell, he occasionally did cross the aisle. But I've seen what I see, and we were speaking about this earlier, I think a lot of those Democrats and Republican learned bad habits from Trump. And so now they all want to be Trumps.
I only have good habits.
So they're
all my habits
they're
are good.
Aggressive, and they don't, I'm going to take my marbles and go home. And I think that's a big problem. I think that's going to have to be unlearned. It's not good.
I see a lot of problems today. That's not a problem.
So you're overdoing your Trump.
There's no such thing as overdoing Trump. I'm the man.
Anyway, so I think that proportional representation, on recorded, is this tape?
I was right.
Is this tape? What is this? Recorded digital media. I will admit that
you could just say on record.
On record, I may admit that I was wrong. So I admit that Z was right. But I'm right that they still have to put in the work.
Doesn't make any sense.
And he needs to agree with that.
That doesn't make any sense.
How does it not? They have to put in the work.
Because it would take a political revolution. And
yes.
were there a political revolution, that would be the work. So there's no putting in the work. And in the current system, there's no putting any work. The only way would be to get a coalition to defeat the current system.
It's definitely not going to work how it is. Not forever. People are getting tired of it. I'm not saying just insurrection at the Capitol. I mean, people in general.
It doesn't take an insurrection at the Capitol.
No,
anyone who thinks that we need.
I didn't say that.
But I know. But a lot of people are saying, well, the only way to even the Bernie people that are militant, the leftists as they are called, that say, oh, we need to get some guns and do gun things to get our way. No, the power of the pen is absolutely still there.
Yes.
And all those people who think that they need to bear arms or some nonsense to get anything in politics have no place in modern society. I
think we just have to, like I said, it just between the times, you have to first campaign finance reform. If that can happen, huge changes will happen. And then people just have to start realizing that you have to kind of decide.
Well,
are you a Dem or do you align more with the Green Party? Because if you do and you move over to that and more people get into that party, they're going to have representation within our Congress.
The good thing is that the party system for the most part is tradition. So all it takes is eroding trust in that tradition and we can change the whole system. I think
that's kind of happening. And I think that has to do with, that is one of the benefits of having people have access to more information. Because if they're willing to learn, they can change their views, and then we can have a more unified front going forward.
Unified front.
Unified front. So I think today is also a sad day.
It is?
It is,
yes.
Yes. It is the year anniversary of Gigi and Kobe Bryant helicopter crash. Sad. A lot of people died that day.
He's like one of 3 basketball players that I actually cared about.
See, you do like sports figures.
Well, Kobe was like when we were kids, like if you threw anything, like if you committed the act of throwing, you would say Kobe.
Somebody said that. Somebody said that he was a teacher and they used to throw crumpled up papers, like when they crumpled up into
basketballs, anything.
It was Kobe, and then all the kids were sad, and the teacher said that they were all really sad, and she crumpled up a piece of paper and shot a three-pointer and said Kobe, and they all were kind of happy again. Like I thought that was pretty powerful.
Yeah, everyone says Kobe.
See, there's another generational thing. We like Kobe. Your dad was sad when he
Yeah,
died.
but
He cried.
you guys were never throwing paper, right? When Kobe was alive, or when Kobe was popular.
I don't know. Did we say like Michael Jordan? I
Well,
don't
you
know.
said there was this like one really obscure game you played, I guess, when you were a kid,
Which
and
one?
there was no internet back then, and then you heard on the radio that someone else played it as a kid, and you were like,
No, that's not how it
"That's
happened.
weird."
No, it was just that we played together. So
No,
our
it
social
was like a specific game. You told
What?
me this story. There was a game that you played as a kid, and it was like a really weird, like convoluted, not common game. And then you heard a radio broadcast from someone who was like really far away from where we live, and they also played the game as a kid, and they were your age. So you're like, how did that game travel around?
Well, I think that our social media networks were so our direct friends were people that we played with in our neighborhood and were in our class. But then we also went outside, like let's say we played league baseball,
My
right?
cousin in Chicago
No,
told
it
me.
wouldn't even be that. It'd just be the town over. You played baseball
It just
with
spread.
kids from different schools.
Yeah.
That's how it spread.
Okay.
It was our social media network went out by knowing kids from different districts and then
social
different
network.
counties and then that was how, and I think it just kept spreading across the country, across the world. That's how it just wasn't as fast as today. But I guarantee you, we played Butts Up 7 Up in our class. We also played it. They also played it in Chicago.
We played
and-
Butts Up 7 Up.
I know, but I'm just saying.
We just called it Butts Up, though, and I think
Everybody-
our rules were different.
I don't even remember the rules. I guess all 7 of us had to get up. I don't know.
We also played the Thumbs Up 7 Up, whatever that was called.
No,
You
Butts
didn't-
Up 7 Up
no,
was
I know.
outside.
No,
Thumbs Up was in the
they're different.
classroom.
But did you play Thumbs
Yeah,
Up too?
where they-
Okay.
you couldn't
so
see
those
and they
are
had to-
time-honored traditions.
See, they had to touch your... Yeah, because your teachers,
teachers
are
are-
Gen
yeah, that's
Xers,
true.
right?
Yeah.
So we continued the tradition.
Yeah, and I'm not going to be a teacher, so I'll never know.
Well, I'm sure your kids, since you have one of your teachers was very happy today, so you never know what you're going to get. Happy teachers, curmudgeon-y teachers.
No, I'm just saying that like I'll never know if it continues.
So anyway, our second show on the anniversary of Kobe's death. I think we don't want to end on a very sad note, but he was gone too young. He definitely had his issues in his life, but he was a good guy, and he was set to do a lot of really good things for people and children. So it was a loss. And his daughter was probably going to be. She could have actually taken women's basketball somewhere, which it's slowly gotten better. But somebody like that, you could really change.
We're gonna need a moment of Kobe.
In a moment of Kobe.
Kobe throws paper,
Throws paper. So anyway, I'm X,
and I'm Z.
and we're together. We're
X and Z.
X and Z.
Bye bye.
Bye.